The sickly eldest daughter of a general, after marrying the notorious regent, drove the 9th prince to regret his actions. I am the sickly eldest daughter of the general's household, having been close friends with the 9th prince since childhood. Everyone knew I would marry him, but upon his return from battle, he forgot our engagement and instead sought to marry my sister. Shua, disguised as a man, fought alongside me on the battlefield. Though of a concubine's birth, she is no less than you. The general's eldest daughter, now that she is being forced into marriage, should I just stand by and watch her marry into a den of wolves? When my mother found out, she was so angry that she vomited blood and lay bedridden. On her deathbed, she forced me to marry the regent who frequented brothels. I didn't want to, but the marriage was announced, and I had no choice. And on that very night, the 9th prince came to me, speaking with a tone of condescension. Marry me as a concubine, and I will treat you as well as I did before, but if you marry the regent, you'll just end up dying of illness. I let out a cold laugh, severing all lingering thoughts of him. On the day of the grand wedding, the 9th prince abandoned his sister and begged me not to marry. The night before the wedding, the regent met with me. He was different from the flirtatious and fickle man others described. His eyes were deep and gentle, and when he saw me, a glimmer of light flickered in his gaze. He slightly parted his lips, then quickly smiled at me. I was puzzled, feeling a vague sense of having met him before, and I asked him about it. The regent was taken aback, lowering his head to sip tea but gripping the teacup tightly. When he looked up again, he gently shook his head at me. Nice to meet you for the first time. I will never abandon you, whether in life or death, as entrusted by the second young lady. That day, I talked with him at length. When the regent left, I sat in the stone pavilion for a long time. I thought, I shouldn't have doubted my mother's intentions. Now it seems the regent is truly a good man. At present, my mother has been gone for over a month, and I often regret the arguments I had with her, causing her distress. As the maid Yuju draped a robe over me, a sudden sound of footsteps reached our ears. The 9th prince strode in as he always did, but his figure paused when he saw me, and he walked towards me. A glimmer of anticipation unexpectedly arose in my heart. Hope he breaks off the engagement, so he'll firmly choose me. Your mother, who never pays attention to worldly affairs, has actually chosen that notorious regent for you. When I heard about this today, I immediately rushed over to stop you. Now that Shua and I have just become engaged, but our bond is deep, I shouldn't let you suffer a miserable life in the second half of your life. Now cancel the marriage, and I'll take you as my concubine. I was stunned, staring at the 9th prince for a long time. The bond from childhood was shattered by this betrayal. He elevated my illegitimate sister to the position of principal wife, and now, as if granting a favor, promises to take me as his concubine. Nanha, I don't need your charity. Marrying the regent is my own choice. He frowned, thinking me willful and reckless. His eyes half closed as he gave me a sweeping glance. Do you really like a man like the regent, who's never home and is so fickle? Or is it that you've set your sights on his overwhelming power and are trying to curry favor with him like those fools? What a self-degradation! A pang struck my heart. Since his return from the southern border, he had become increasingly distant. Every word he spoke to me was like a silver needle, as if intent on crushing my dignity to pieces. I am not that kind of woman. And the marriage with him was arranged by our mother. There's no need to slander me. Since we are married, we have no further ties. Why take this opportunity to humiliate me? Humiliate? I did it for your sake, ignoring the gossip and marrying both of you sisters into the household. Yet you accuse me of humiliating you. Li Chang'an, you truly are an ungrateful wretch. No wonder your sister always suffers in the mansion. It must be your doing. I clenched my teeth, staring fiercely at the arrogant face of the 9th prince, a single tear slowly rolling down. It's because I still held on to hope. I thought he married my sister only to save her, that he still had some genuine feelings for me, even if only a tiny bit. But now, his words shattered all my illusions. I took a deep breath, clutching my chest as I coughed uncontrollably. Yes, I am ungrateful. Then why does the ninth prince keep pestering me? My marriage has nothing to do with you. Please respect yourself. The ninth prince sneered coldly in anger, raising his finger to point at me. Fine, I'll wait for you to come begging me. I stood in the stone pavilion, my heart a mixture of emotions. Yuju looked at me with concern. Miss, the ninth prince must have been incited by the eldest miss. For the sake of marrying the ninth prince, she could disregard ethics and impersonate a man to go to war. Exchanging glances for 3 years, she must have slandered you a lot. We need to explain things clearly to the ninth prince. We can't just suffer in silence. I raised my hand to break the rain droplets. It's not that I can't understand the situation, but the attitude of the ninth prince has truly made me lose all desire to have any further thoughts about him, not wanting to speak another word to him. No need, I have 20 years of friendship with him. If he can abandon me so easily at the instigation of my sister, then such a person is not worth marrying. The raindrops fluttered like eyelashes, and she seemed anxious. But the regent, I shook my head. From today's conversation, it's clear he is no ordinary man. Far from the rumors that paint him in such a poor light, marrying him and being a respectful wife would likely spare me from any mistreatment. I turned around and returned to my dormitory. 3 days later, he was to marry his sister, and the regent, as if afraid I would regret it, also set our wedding for the same day. On that day, we would both be married, each going our separate ways, never to see each other again. I closed my eyes, thinking of the recent events, and my heart stirred, unable to stop myself from crying all night. After this night, I will no longer shed tears for the ninth prince. The next day, the shoe embroidery house delivered 10 wedding gowns for my sister and me to choose from. The regent also had someone send one over, saying it was a token of his sincerity, and that I should decide everything. If I didn't like it, choosing something else was fine. It was a stroke of luck that the first dress I laid eyes on was the one he had chosen for his wedding attire. I could see a few vividly lifelike butterflies resting on the shoulders, exquisitely crafted. Over there, Li Changshu glanced at a few wedding dresses, none of which met his satisfaction. He quickly spotted the dress I was gently caressing and immediately snatched it away. This wedding dress is truly beautiful. I was momentarily stunned. In the past, I rarely spent time with my sister. She always liked to pretend to be weak, once falsely accusing me of taking her silk handkerchief and slandering me in front of our father. Back then, my mother stood up for me. So even if my father wanted to reprimand me, he held back his anger. Now that my mother has passed away, there is no one left to support me. Even when it comes to choosing a wedding dress, she gets to help me pick it out. This legitimate daughter's status in this marquisate where concubines are favored over wives has become meaningless. Sister, this wedding dress is... Li Changshu immediately turned his head and glared at me, then rolled his eyes. Father wants me to choose clothes with you. Whoever picks first gets it. What right do you have to question me? I'll take this one. You pick another. She snatched the wedding dress and immediately hugged it to her chest, refusing to let go. I sighed inwardly. There's no point in arguing. I glanced down at the wedding gowns and chose one adorned with peonies before deciding to leave the courtyard. Li Changshu's maidservant, Xiao Kui, suddenly spoke up, her hands on her hips and her tone sarcastic. Choosing a wedding gown is now considered bullying. Does the second young lady think she's still pampered by someone? The eldest young lady is about to marry the ninth prince, far more noble than you. What's wrong with choosing the best wedding gown? Does that make her a bully? I turned my head and glanced at Xiao Kui. Since my sister married a prince, our father, who already doted on her, became even more indulgent. With her and her maid gaining power, they started bullying me. Sister, I didn't want to harm our sibling bond, But your maid has gone too far, disrespecting her superiors. Such a sharp-tongued maidservant is better off being sold. Xiao Kui, who had originally been standing with her hands on her hips, shrank back in fear and immediately took a few steps back. Li Changshu let out a scoffing laugh, stepping forward to shield the maid. You dare to sell my maidservant? I will be the prince's consort in the future, and perhaps even become the empress. What are you? Just the wife of the regent. How can you compare to my 9th prince? Xiao Kui, what are you afraid of? I've got your back. Go ahead and slap her mouth. After speaking, she waved her hand and summoned a few servants. Quickly restrain her limbs. I'll back you up. Fortunately, the servants still had some sense and, after exchanging glances, all knelt down trembling. Yuzhu was about to argue a few words in frustration, but she was met with a harsh slap from Li Changshu. I immediately hugged her, gently caressing the marks left by the slap on her face, but Li Changshu struck first. You lowly wretch, what do you think you are? I could kill you and it wouldn't matter. Get up, all of you. If you dare not touch Li Chang'an, then capture this maid for me. Xiao Kui, beat her to death, beat her hard. I'd like to see who dares to cause me trouble. My heart tightened, and I immediately hugged Yuzhu. Sister, don't involve others in our matters. You can't touch my Yuzhu, and neither can you. But the servants, having received my sister's orders, had no fear of Yuzhu and immediately snatched her from my arms. Yuzhu cried out to me, but couldn't reach my hand. Tears streamed down my face as I looked up at my sister's contemptuous expression. For the first time, I set aside my dignity as the legitimate daughter and begged her on my knees to spare Yuzhu. Li Changshu's lips curved into a smile as he glanced at me, then swept his gaze over Yuzhu, who was beaten until she vomited blood. I don't want to, good sister. In the past, my status was humble, and I couldn't make many decisions, always suppressed by the first wife. Now it's my turn to take charge. From a distance, Yuzhu looked at me with a determined gaze, then closed her eyes sadly. Miss, don't beg her. Even if Yuzhu leaves, her vengeful spirit will haunt the eldest lady. Even in death, Li Changshu, you will never rest easy. Li Changshu became even more enraged and ordered his servants to strike harder. I kept crying out, unable to stop their actions. By the time Li Changshu ordered his servants to stop, Yuzhu had already lost her breath. She sneered, the death of a servant in the Marquis's estate is of no consequence. Now, throw her body to the wilderness, where wild dogs can feast upon it. Li Changshu. I widened my eyes, glaring at her with all my might, wishing I could strangle her and bring back Yuzhu's life. She, however, turned around lightly. When the crowd dispersed and the restraints on me loosened, I immediately bolted out the door. Like a madman, I tried to reclaim Yuzhu's body, but was knocked down by the servants. Second miss. The entire estate now follows the orders of the eldest miss. Please don't make it difficult for us servants. Their tone carried a hint of mockery, as everyone in the estate now eagerly seeks to please my elder sister. What am I worth? I sat on the ground, disheveled, my hands scraped and bleeding. My ankle excruciatingly painful. I don't even remember how I got back. I muddled through the entire day in a daze. Now that mother is gone, and Yuzhu is gone, the ones in the mansion who loved me the most are all gone. My heart aches even more intensely, and I cry uncontrollably. Just 2 more days. And Yuzhu was supposed to accompany me to the regent's residence, where even if I wasn't favored, I would still receive the proper respect due to the royal household. The good days were just within reach. Mother, now only Chang'an is left. I cried until I fell into a deep sleep. The next day, my ankle was swollen to a great height. The physician they hired took a look and merely diagnosed it as a sprain. Only after seeing off the physician did my father come to visit me, his tone full of disdain. Why bring a physician to the house before the wedding? Both of you are about to get married. It's bad for your reputation if word gets out. I rubbed my foot and didn't even look up. Are you worried about my sister's reputation? The father's favorite daughter is my sister. A sickly wretch like me is beneath your notice. But I am in too much pain to leave. Father snorted through his nose, crossing his arms and looking at me coldly. I hear that Yuju was beaten to death by Shuas men. When you marry, you can't go alone. People might think I'm mistreating you after your mother's death. Choose another to accompany you as a dowry. Do you understand? I finally looked up at my father, shook my head, and the firmness in my eyes made him pause, muttering stubborn as ever. He turned and left in a huff. He probably thought of our mother. A sigh escaped my heart, and my nose stung unbearably. At night, it's unclear how the news leaked out. Someone climbed over the wall and left a jar of ointment and a letter by the window. I unfolded it and saw that it was indeed written by the regent. I have already taken care of the Rainbead's body. Do not worry, the ointment is made by the immortal master. It can be used. The wedding dress will arrive at your residence tomorrow. I was momentarily stunned, feeling a warm sensation in my heart. The next day, the wedding dress prepared by the regent arrived in my room. Knowing my fondness for silver butterflies, he had ordered 100 to be embroidered on it. It was even more dazzling than my sister's dress. I felt a bit surprised and stood up to put on my wedding dress alone. I stumbled out of my room and waited in the main hall with my sister for the groom to arrive. Unexpectedly, as I sat there, an unknown person slipped a note into my hand. Wait, you will take Shue's sedan chair, this time. I have betrayed her. I just couldn't bear to see you die. Not after all these years of friendship. I glanced at it, crumpled the note into a ball, and deliberately tossed it at my sister's feet. My sister, wearing the wedding gown that should have been mine, looked confused, signaling to Xiao Kui to pick it up for her. Unexpectedly, the words on the paper infuriated her to the point of tears. She yanked off the red veil, pushed me down with one hand, and shouted, "You wretch! No one can take the 9th prince away from me." After speaking, she raised her hand to slap me. In an instant, a chaotic clamor of footsteps and voices trying to stop the fight filled the room, drowning out the footsteps of the two groomsmen. They also witnessed the scene of Li Changshu humiliating me. I was grabbed by the hair, tears streaming uncontrollably, and turned to see the two figures in the distance. The regent Wang arrived quickly before the 9th prince. Raising his hand to slap his sister, Li Changshu stared in shock, covering his face, looking at the 9th prince whose complexion was ashen. "Husband, are you just going to stand there and watch the regent Wang hit me?" "Regent Wang, do you know who you're hitting? I am the future empress." The regent Wang narrowed his eyes slightly, giving Li Changshu a cold, mocking glance. "How dare you speak such treasonous words? The 9th prince has truly found a virtuous partner, just as brainless as you." He showed no fear towards the 9th prince, and even the 9th prince dared not retort, leaving only Li Changshu, leaping and bounding about the hall. "It's like a monkey show, Li Chang'an. You must have deliberately forged my husband's handwriting, intentionally trying to embarrass me, aren't you?" She immediately took out the small note, and the 9th prince saw it at a glance, immediately becoming nervous and trying to snatch it away. Seeing him so anxious, Li Changshu was momentarily stunned. Then let out a few silly chuckles. "Is it really written by you, 9th prince? Why are you treating Shua like this? Does Shua not deserve your love? Is she doomed to yield everything to her younger sister and endure all the grievances? She keeps complaining about her grievances, but from her youth until now, the preferential treatment she has received is even more than mine. Whatever she likes, she can simply get by cozying up to father, and I, being physically weak and disliking conflict, only occasionally suffered grievances. It was only when my mother intervened to stop Li Changshu's overstepping that I received justice. Now, it has become the grievance she speaks of." I furrowed my brow, looking at her with a mix of helplessness and her accusing face. At that moment, the regent had already pulled me into his embrace. After watching my sister's outburst, he reached out and snatched the note from her hand. "Oh, the ninth prince wants to follow the plot of a play. After returning to court, how many people will impeach you, saying you're neglecting your duties, always running around and playing? You're quite the busy man indeed." He didn't even blink, tossing it to the ground. "There's no need to test the bond between my wife and me. We've already pledged our marriage vows." I couldn't help but look up at him. Earlier, I felt the regent was somewhat familiar, but he didn't say anything. Now he has changed his tune, claiming that we were already engaged. He slightly parted his lips towards me and gently patted my back. "We were engaged before birth, but due to some troubles in my youth, we were separated. Chang'an, do you still remember the clay doll? You were very young then, so you probably forgot who gave it to you. That was my gift to you when we first met. Even if it's not perfect, it's still a token of my sincerity." In an instant, I recalled the vaguely familiar figure of the young man in my mind, before I met the ninth prince. I used to live with Prince Zhenghua. My father and mother were at odds. Unaware that she had secretly sheltered Prince Zhenghua, I lived with him day and night, and after turning 10, I no longer remembered him. But His Highness Chonghua is the child of the imperial concubine, originally a prince who should have been burned to death in the Duke Tower. The current regent, it is said, comes from humble origins, a divine being who rose to prominence solely through his own abilities. Chong. He raised his hand to press against my lips, shaking his head at me. The ninth prince on the other side was green with envy, coughing loudly. "Regent Wang, even if you have achieved great feats, what does it matter? Li Chang'an had previously pledged to marry me. She was meant to be my wife. Release her." He reached out to pull her away, but Li Changshu grabbed his hand first. She wouldn't let it go and cried, demanding an explanation from the ninth prince. Her behavior strikingly similar to her mother's tantrums. Annoyed by her persistence, the ninth prince instinctively raised his hand and slapped Li Changshu. On their wedding day, Li Changshu was struck with 2 heavy slaps, one on each cheek, leaving him stunned and motionless. "Chang'an, considering our past friendship, I shouldn't abandon you. I've thought about it a lot. Although Shua is good, back in the military, men are naturally prone to loneliness and don't really care who they are with. After much thought, you are still the best. You understand the bigger picture. And although you are sickly, your character is good. It was only after mother reprimanded me that I realized, as long as you haven't stepped into the regent's residence, you can still turn back. Our childhood engagement is definitely more genuine than the regent's lies." After saying this, the ninth prince deliberately shot a mocking glance at the regent. He clearly intends to compete with the regent for me. Something that is obvious to anyone, let alone my sister. She snapped back to reality and immediately swallowed her usual arrogance, responding with a delicate and tearful sob. "The ninth prince still looks down upon my status as a concubine's child. It's all because Shua is lowly that the ninth prince is ridiculed by outsiders. Shua has been used to it since childhood. Being born from a concubine is the most humble. How could it compare to my sister's maternal family?" She glanced at me, deliberately shuddered, and immediately lowered her head to sniffle and sob. "You also know that Shua has already given her body to you, and no one else will want her." The little maidservant, Kui, by her side was also quite astute. She immediately stepped forward, grabbed Li Changshu's hand, and cried, saying the young lady was wronged. After all, the ninth prince had been her husband in the military camp for several years, and he still couldn't bear to see her suffer. He quickly glanced at me, saw that my expression was normal, and then sighed as he looked at his sister. "I know you're wronged, but Chang'an is weak in health. I've thought it over, and if she were to go to the regent's residence, she would be mistreated. I'll marry her first, and then I'll marry you as my concubine. Won't that be fine?" When the ninth prince said this, my sister and I all rolled our eyes inwardly. It's hard to tell whether he overestimates himself or is simply naive. Li Changshu pouted, charmingly tugged at the ninth prince's sleeve, and was about to speak when the regent interrupted. Your self-absorbed, arrogant nature hasn't changed at all. Chang'an personally agreed to be my wife. What right do you have to object? The ninth prince pursed his lips into a thin line and turned to look at me. Chang'an, say it yourself. Compared to me, your childhood friend, do you really choose a man who frequents pleasure quarters? I am a royal descendant, and what is he but a mere nobody? The regent prince, if you speak nicely, is nothing more than a house pet. How dare you bark at me? In a fit of anger, he spoke without restraint, and soon received a slap from the regent prince. The birth status of Prince Zhonghua was even more noble than his own. Now, though living incognito, he was still a powerful minister who could manipulate the tides of the court. Even the emperor had to speak to him humbly, not daring to utter harsh words. This time, the ninth prince was desperate. That slap instantly calmed him down. Covering his face, he cautiously observed the regent's expression, fearing that a single displeased look might lead to a report against him tomorrow. Ninth prince. The emperor's decree is for you to marry the eldest daughter of the Li household, Li Changshu. Your noble status, how does it compare to the emperor's? The ninth prince immediately fell silent, covering his face and bowing his head. Li Changshu, however, saw the prince being bullied by the regent, and her heart was filled with 1,000 doubts, her eyebrows furrowed in anger. Who do you think you are? You are merely a subject, yet you dare to humiliate the prince, husband. Why should you fear him, even if it reaches the emperor's ears? You have done nothing wrong. How dare this treacherous vassal not be thrown into the dungeon to be executed in the autumn? The regent Wang heard this and raised an eyebrow slightly, giving Li Changshu a somewhat mocking glance. Truly, a young calf fears no tiger. Yet he dares to speak so boldly to him. He chuckled as he looked over Li Changshu's wedding attire, the silver butterfly on my shoulder. It was truly the first wedding dress he chose for me. Immediately, I shook my head helplessly, but the ninth prince quickly grabbed her hand, signaling her to be silent. Yet, the sister only felt the ninth prince's approval and became even more talkative. Under the heavens, who is not the servant of the Son of Heaven? A while ago, a female servant in the mansion insulted me, and I turned around and beat her to death. Look, even in the mansion, this is the principle. It should be the same in the court. Hearing Li Changshu mention Yuzhu shamelessly, my hand, which was resting on the arm of Prince Zhonghua, tightened instantly. With full hatred, I glared at my elder sister's triumphant face. Shut up, you're just taking advantage of my lack of support in the mansion, deliberately harming my servant. Yuzhu and I were like sisters, and you brutally beat her to death. How dare you mention her? Aren't you afraid that in the dead of night, she will come to claim your life every day? My elder sister's body trembled, and she immediately spoke up. What bullying? Sister, I don't understand what you're saying. Besides, who would refer to a maid as a sister? If you want to accuse me, you should at least say something we can believe. I was so angry that sweat broke out on my forehead. Already weak, this anger made me unable to stop coughing violently. The Crown Prince Zhonghua immediately patted my back and summoned a servant to bring me the elixir. Don't be afraid, this is an elixir from the immortal master. If you take it regularly, your body will recover. His tone was gentle as he used a silk handkerchief to wipe the sweat from my face, then gently held me in his arms, shielding me from Li Changshu's venomous gaze. I could feel his chest tremble, followed by his commanding voice, authoritative and unyielding. Is that so, Li Changshu? Then tell me, how did you get the wedding dress you're wearing? If you were just an unwanted concubine's daughter, how could you possibly wear such priceless Suzhou embroidery? Li Changshu looked down at her wedding dress, puzzled. She only knew that the craftsmanship of the dress was exquisite, and she couldn't tell the difference between Sichuan embroidery and Suzhou embroidery. Assuming it was a dialect issue with the regent, She proudly raised her head and said, "On the day we chose the wedding dresses together, my sister didn't want it, so I took it. Why should I be scolded for not deserving it just because I'm wearing a nicer dress? I'm marrying a prince." She looked up with a hint of pride, not yet having the chance to examine the wedding gown on me, who was being tightly shielded in the regent's arms. If she could see my attire, she probably wouldn't dare to speak so confidently. "Oh, if I'm not mistaken, this is the wedding dress I had custom-made for Chang'an and sent to your residence." Her sister looked puzzled, and the ninth prince, standing to the side, instantly felt his face fall, instinctively retorting, "Why is the regent prince bullying others so much? Why does this wedding dress even distinguish between yours and mine? Isn't it all from the shoe embroidery pavilion that was sent to the mansion for the young lady to choose from, even if you want to support Chang'an? You shouldn't tell such a clumsy lie." The regent prince, however, was not in a hurry, gently loosening his grip on my hand. "Li Changshu, wouldn't you like to open your eyes and take a look at the embroidery on Chang'an's dress? It's exactly the same as yours. I had over 100 seamstresses work through the night to make this because you took the wedding dress I gave to Chang'an the day before, leaving me in such a rush. I only just received this wedding dress today, and I still have the work order in my possession. I can show it to you right now, or at the very least, I can call those seamstresses to testify." In that instant, Li Changshu's expression showed a hint of unease, and he stuttered, unable to speak clearly, immediately tugged at the ninth prince's sleeve in nervousness. But now, under the pressure of the regent's authority, the ninth prince stood frozen in place, his mouth shut tight, afraid to say anything. "Ninth prince, I really can't tell if you're truly stupid or just pretending to be, marrying such a domineering and abusive wretch, yet you still dare to flaunt your arrogance in front of me. Come, Li Changshu has spoken wildly and committed theft. He must be punished to set an example. The Li family favors the concubine over the wife, bullying their legitimate daughter to the point of having no recourse. Truly despicable." After speaking, he narrowed his eyes and looked at the shivering ninth prince. "Do you think my punishment is fair?" The ninth prince, not daring to defy the enraged regent, immediately fell silent, his face turning ashen, letting Li Changshu cry out. He didn't dare to utter a single word. Instead, resentment grew, looking at me with a face full of disappointment. "Chang'an, when your mother is at home, do you treat your sister like this? With someone backing you up, you hurt her like this? You are truly vicious." I was momentarily stunned, looking at his suspicious face, and for the first time, I found him utterly ridiculous. The 20 years of camaraderie now seemed utterly worthless. I disdainfully shook my head at him. "Ninth prince, can't you see it by now? All these years, it was my sister who oppressed me. Even my maidservant was beaten to death by her. And you still say that I bullied her? You are truly foolish, unable to distinguish right from wrong. And yet you dare to humiliate me like this." I swallowed the stifling anger in my heart and gave him a cold smile. It was only then that the ninth prince came to his senses. After carefully pondering the words just spoken, he realized that Li Changshu's attempts to sow discord in front of him were all an illusion. If I truly enjoyed boundless favor, why would she beat the maid to death and take away the wedding gown? Why would I be crippled in one leg and have no one to attend to me on the day of my wedding? The ninth prince slightly opened his mouth, about to say something, but was interrupted by Li Changshu's words. "You can't hit me. I'm carrying the ninth prince's child." The crowd looked at the ninth prince and Li Changshu in surprise. The ninth prince's face turned ashen in an instant. Having figured this out, he became somewhat displeased with Li Changshu, now that Li Changshu had revealed this matter. There was no turning back for the marriage, and both of them would be branded with the stigma of conceiving a child out of wedlock. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at Li Changshu, who was crying messily on the ground. Feeling a surge of annoyance, Li Changshu anxiously grabbed onto his trouser leg. Fearing being dragged out to be beaten again, ninth prince, Shua did it to protect himself. He had no choice but to reveal the secret. He must protect our child. How could the ninth prince care about her helplessness? He immediately struggled fiercely, unwilling to be held by Li Changshu. Watching the drama between the two, I suddenly blinked, my lips curling into a self-mocking smile as I said to the ninth prince, "Nanha, was it because of this that you broke off the engagement back then?" The ninth prince paused, pursed his lips, and after a moment's hesitation, nodded at me. "My child, I can't just abandon him, once the months pass. It will be impossible to hide, and that's why I have no choice but to make her my official wife. Chang'an, if you marry me, you can still hold the reins of power, and Li Changshu will be a mere figurehead for you to manipulate. Please, don't marry the regent, will you?" Even at this point, he still wants to make one last attempt, trying to coax me back. I gave him a cold glance, as if looking at a stranger, my eyes icy. "Impossible. There is no longer any possibility between us." Seeing my resolute words, the ninth prince stepped forward without thinking, reflexively kicking his foot and unintentionally kicking Li Changshu's barely 3-month-old belly. She let out a low cry of pain, but the ninth prince paid no attention, attempting to step past the regent to grab my hand. The regent Wang immediately blocked his overstepping hand, giving him a disdainful look. "Ninth prince, you'd better turn around and look at your wife. That kick of yours was truly vicious." Gradually, Li Changshu's restrained voice grew louder. She lowered her hand to touch the damp ground, only to see a hand stained with fresh blood. Ninth prince, my stomach hurts so much. Is my child gone?" Sob. The ninth prince glanced at her, slightly parted his lips, his brows and eyes showing no trace of panic, as if he had breathed a sigh of relief. "Since that's the case, our engagement is annulled. Tomorrow, I will petition the emperor, Chang'an, now that she and I are no more. Will you look at me again?" He persisted relentlessly, refusing to let go of me. The once radiant and carefree young man has now become as dark and despicable as he is now. I ignored him and stepped back to the side of the regent, who then took me in his arms and left this noisy marquis's residence. Recalling everything that has happened these days, I feel utterly disgusted. My head throbbed, and I saw a hand reaching out from behind the curtain, offering me a box of ointment. "Don't let yourself get too upset. Now that you've seen the true nature of this despicable person, there will be no more ties binding you in the future." I took the ointment. I thought to myself that Prince Zhenghua was being reckless with his words. In such a public setting, he dared to slander a royal prince. I immediately spoke up to warn him against further reckless remarks. The regent king was momentarily stunned, murmuring a few quiet acknowledgements. Yes, my dear is right. I will listen to my wife." Upon arriving at the residence, the regent king still disregarded others' glances, lifting me up and carrying me straight to the bridal chamber. Worried that I might be tired, he urged me to rest early and not wait for him. My heart raced as I lay comfortably on the bed, waiting for him to return. When he came back, he was carrying a roasted chicken in his hand. "Come and eat quickly. Don't starve yourself. We haven't had roasted chicken in a long time. It was your favorite when you were a child." He gave a flattering smile and naturally sat down beside me. I pursed my lips and raised my hand to take it. "Your Highness Zhenghua, when you suddenly disappeared back then, were you taken away by your clan?" The regent looked slightly surprised at me, then smiled and tore off a leg to hand it to me. "I thought you'd ask about my affairs at the brothel. That's also something to ask." I nodded, took a bite of the roasted chicken, which was incredibly delicious. The regent propped his chin on his hand and looked at me, speaking slowly and deliberately. As the son of the imperial concubine, he was originally a contender for the throne of the current emperor. Unfortunately, at that time he was still very young. And after the death of the imperial concubine, he was sent out of the palace, The imperial concubine was close with my mother and secretly entrusted him to her care. However, this arrangement was not sustainable in the long term. After a few years, he was taken away by the elders of the clan. The concubine my father cherished the most was my mother. Unfortunately, they were unable to have a child for a long time. By the time she became pregnant, they were already old. The imperial decree that secretly named me crown prince was altered. Now, I am reclaiming what is rightfully mine. Over the years, I've set up many things. Frequenting brothels was also for a reason, and it was to divert attention. When I heard the Prince of Zhonghua say this, the roast chicken I was eating suddenly didn't taste as good. Seeing the worry in my eyes, he patted my hand. I never fight unprepared battles. Stay at home, rest assured as your ladyship, and when I succeed, I will welcome you as my queen. I immediately waved my hand. This frail body probably couldn't handle such a heavy responsibility. Prince Zhonghua slightly raised an eyebrow and took out a pill for me. I sought out immortal doctors specifically to cure your chronic illness. Give me a few years, and you will surely be safe and sound. A warmth spread through my heart as he suddenly kissed my cheek. Startled, I immediately lowered my head and vigorously gnawed on the chicken leg. Such intimacy. Even my 20-year bond with the 9th prince had never known. My face flushed with embarrassment, but the regent found it amusing and kissed my cheek again. He made me lose my appetite, and I looked at him innocently, which finally stopped his playful antics. You eat first, after we finish eating. It's time for us to consummate our marriage. My heart tightened. Put down the drumstick in hand. This night seems to be a sleepless one. The next day, Prince Zhonghua held me in his arms, gently kissed my shoulder, and called me wife in a low voice. I trembled a few times and chose to pretend to be asleep. He still needed to attend court, and he didn't bear to wake me up, so he quickly dressed and left on his own. Now in the residence, he selected a maidservant for me, named Qiaoji, who is clever and nimble. She smiles as she helps me dress up, bustling around to ensure I don't feel unwell anywhere. Extremely considerate. At noon, an urgent message arrived from my mother's family. I unfolded it and glanced at it, feeling a bit nauseous from the shock. Yesterday, Li Changshu lost his child and was also called off the engagement, then hanged himself at night. Father wants me to return home quickly to see how to handle the situation. Now he is probably heartbroken and unable to handle Li Changshu's funeral arrangements at all. Her reputation is ruined, making it difficult to hold a grand ceremony. Qiaoji glanced at me and immediately bowed. Madam, this is a case of evil begetting evil. Since you are now married to the regent, it is best to entrust the matters of the estate to others and not involve yourself personally. A concubine's daughter, or a woman who has been disgraced and sent back from her marriage, can simply be wrapped in a straw mat and thrown into a mass grave. When she said this, I thought of the pitiful death of Yuzhu. I glanced at her and smiled. You're right, this matter will be handled by you. Only by doing this can I avenge Yuzhu and relieve this grievance in my heart. My old father at home was so angry that he wrote several letters to scold me overnight, which I ignored. Qiaoji was sharp-tongued, and even when father angrily accused her of being reckless, he couldn't stop her from throwing Li Changshu's corpse into a mass grave. Then they said that Xiaotsue was loyal and followed her master, finding someone to strangle her and throw her body in as well, just because I nodded. No one could stop it. The taste of power is indeed intoxicating. No wonder my sister enjoyed oppressing others once she was favored. I let out a cold laugh, silently calling out the name Yuzhu. I softly whispered rest in peace, hoping she could find some solace on her journey to reincarnation. Since moving into the regent's residence, I have never again suffered the humiliations I endured at home. The Prince Zhonghua also treated me with great care. At the end of the year, the 9th prince was exposed for forming factions and engaging in private dealings, which infuriated the emperor, who immediately demoted him to a commoner. a year later, I gave birth to a son for the regent king. That year, we were often apart. The frequency of Prince Zhenhua's outings increased, and I knew his plan was about to succeed. Leaving Ansheng alone in the mansion, he always felt guilty towards me, and after each reluctant farewell, he had to leave again. In the third year, he besieged the palace, having already controlled the military, with everyone now rallying behind him. The throne was merely a matter of taking it. In the imperial palace, the brothers' recognition stunned even the emperor, who had never known he had such a young brother. The emperor had never harbored grand ambitions since childhood, pushed into this position by his maternal family, feeling out of place. Seeing Prince Zhenhua ascend the throne without resistance, he willingly abdicated. Delighted, he went off to live as a carefree prince. I sat at home, nervously embroidering. Before I knew it, I pricked my finger, but I didn't feel the pain. When a series of footsteps sounded, I suddenly turned my head and saw Prince Zhenhua, covered in frost and snow, smiling gently at me. Tears streamed down my face, and an "I'm home, today we meet again, never to part." I looked into his eyes filled with me, smiling and nodding. Welcome home." After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. In the court, General Han Lai returned victorious, requesting only 2 letters of reward from the emperor. One was a marriage decree, to wed the willful foreign princess. The other was a divorce letter, to dismiss me, his childhood sweetheart who had waited for him for 10 years, on the day I left with my maid. It was also the day the princess entered the Han residence as a bride. At the back gate of the general's residence, the princess, who envied my long-standing acquaintance with Han Lai, blocked my path. She ordered her men to capture me and turn me into a human torch, using my drained blood to water the fiery golden lilies that filled the general's garden. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the Lantern Festival night when Han Lai and I were betrothed. That year, during the full moon, the emperor and his ministers came to my home to admire the lanterns, and casually pointed out the marriage between Han Lai and me. This time, I would not allow myself to fall into the fire again, and Han Lai, for the sake of national stability, sought to marry a foreign princess. I was utterly shocked to discover that he had also been reborn. After both of us refused, the emperor could say no more and happily agreed to Han Lai's request, even arranging for me to be married to the crown prince. On the day of my wedding to the crown prince, which was also the day Han Lai was to depart to welcome his bride, he knelt unmoving at my doorstep, his eyes bloodshot. In the eerie dungeon of the Han estate, Helian Shui poured a pot of boiling water fiercely over my head. A fierce burning sensation spread across my body. Yet I couldn't even utter a single word of pain, because I was trapped in a stone vat. My limbs were gone, and my tongue had long been cut out. Helian Shui grabbed my chin and revealed a terrifying smile. "Bitch, you're really tough, using your blood to water the flowers for over a month, and you still haven't died. Once you're completely dead, you won't be able to seduce Han Lai anymore." As soon as she finished speaking, she plunged a sharp dagger fiercely into my chest. I felt the warm blood continuously flowing out, and my body temperature was gradually dissipating. With a heart full of unwillingness and pain, I slowly closed my eyes. Miss, the lamps in the corridor are all lit. So beautiful. The Emperor's procession has already passed the Zhu Bridge. Let's hurry to the flower hall," a maidservant shouted loudly. I was stunned, looking around at the familiar mansion and bustling surroundings, which was the Xie residence. I had actually been reborn on the day of the Lantern Festival. My fingertips dug deeply into my palm, the sharp pain confirming that all of this was real. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the turmoil within me. As I approached the seating area, I felt Han Lai's gaze upon me. On this day in my previous life, The emperor had been in high spirits, drinking and enjoying himself, and it was then that he arranged my marriage to Han Lai. Not long after our engagement, Han Lai led the army on a mission. Leaving me behind in the residence, I waited 10 years for Han Lai, only to have him coldly tear up our marriage contract and marry a foreign princess. The old love is gone, and imperial orders cannot be defied. Even though my heart aches with reluctance, I can only pack my things and leave. However, the Nanjiao princess is willful and ruthless, refusing to let go. She envies and hates that I have known Han Lai for many years, and she orders her people to turn me into a human pig, torturing me to death. Zhao Zhao, why aren't you paying your respects to the emperor yet? Father's voice pulled me back from my memories, and I instinctively shivered, instantly becoming clear. In my previous life, all the torment I endured was due to Han Lai. This time, I must not repeat the same mistakes. I must stay far away from Han Lai. The emperor raised his eyes to see me, gently shook the luminous cup in his hand, and said with a smile, "Minister Xie, this is your eldest daughter, Zhao Zhao, who has grown into such a beauty. I hear that she and the Han family's son have been childhood sweethearts. Why not seize the day? Today, I shall unite this good match. Please reconsider, Your Majesty." Han Lai suddenly knelt on one knee, clasped his fists in salute, and spoke in a clear voice. Everyone was stunned, especially my father, whose face turned extremely pale. "Han Lai, what do you mean by this?" The emperor set down his wine cup, rubbed the jade ring on his finger, and his expression was unreadable. "Minister Han, are you defying the imperial decree?" Han Lai clasped his fists, his back straight, and his eyes firm as he looked at the emperor. "Your humble subject has heard that Princess Helian Shui of Nanjiao will arrive in the capital tomorrow for a political marriage. As the emperor is troubled by the choice of the bride, I am willing to relieve your majesty of this concern." The entire hall erupted in commotion. I was so shocked that I almost dropped my chopsticks. In my previous life at this time, Han Lai had never met the Nanjiao princess, and he had no motive to seek her hand in marriage, unless he had also been reborn. After all, the princess of Nanjiao was from a foreign land. No matter which prince she was matched with, the emperor would feel uneasy. Han Lai's actions indeed solved a troublesome matter for the emperor. The emperor's expression softened slightly as he turned to me. "Daughter of the Xie family, what do you think? This humble lady dares to ask the emperor to reconsider." I lifted my skirt and knelt beside Han Lai, the chill of the blue bricks creeping up my knees. It was just childish play. How can it be taken seriously? Since General Han is concerned about the country, I, as a subject's daughter, naturally support. My voice was calm, and my expression remained unperturbed. Han Lai's gaze burned into me, his eyes filled with astonishment. The emperor narrowed his eyes. "Oh, this is indeed rare." His gaze fell upon me again, his tone casual. "Since you two are not meant to be, and my crown prince is now over 30 without a spouse, I shall assign you to him." Before I could react, the sound of beads rustling echoed, and someone entered, bringing with them a strong scent of medicine. "Your son. Thanks your majesty for this great favor." I looked up, only to meet a pair of eyes that mirrored the galaxy, deep and icy. It was the crown prince, Xiao Jingran. He clenched his fist against his lips and coughed softly. Beneath his pale moon-white brocade robe, his crippled leg was revealed, bound with iron chains. The chains swayed gently with each step he took, emitting faint sounds that echoed coldly in the silent hall, creating a sense of broken yet austere beauty. He looked at me, and a faint smile played at the corners of his lips. Han Lai saw the person approaching, his eyes filled with astonishment, causing him to fumble and knock over the glass goblet on the table, spilling wine all over. "Your Majesty." "Zhao Zhao." The emperor raised his hand to stop him, finishing the wine in his cup. "I am tired. Let us return to the palace." Han Lai wanted to say something more, but seeing the emperor already rising, He could only close his mouth. The two marriages were thus settled, the banquet ended, and the guests left one by one. I walked slowly along the corridor alone. Something felt inexplicably strange. In my memories, the Crown Prince's health hadn't been this frail in the previous life. Suddenly, a powerful force grabbed my hand. Han Lai stood in front of me, his eyes filled with a hint of urgency. Xie Zhaojiao, you are not allowed to marry the Crown Prince. I furrowed my brows, struggling to break free from his grip, my tone brimming with impatience. Let go, Han Lai, you're about to marry Helian Shui. What do you care about me? Xie Zhaojiao, I know you're upset. He softened his voice. I lowered my eyes, my expression unreadable, only offering a calm response. I'm not upset. He thought he had hit a nerve and continued speaking to himself. We grew up together, and you always declared in front of everyone that you would only marry me, today. When I asked for the hand of Helian Shui, your heart must be broken. I forced a smile, my tone cold and distant. What are you talking about? He frowned. I know you're putting on a brave face, but I will marry Helian Shui sooner or later. I looked at his handsome yet arrogant face, feeling a bit disoriented. In my previous life, we grew up together, and just a few days after our engagement, he led his troops to the frontier. Before he left, he said the front lines were dangerous and asked me to wait for him in the mansion, promising that he would give me a grand wedding and grow old with me. I believed him and waited for 10 full years, until I became a 26-year-old spinster, a laughingstock of the entire capital. Finally, on the day he returned to the capital after a great victory, he asked the emperor for 2 letters as a reward in the court, a letter of annulment to cancel our engagement, and a marriage contract to wed Helian Shui. I was heartbroken and ready to let him go, but Helian Shui wouldn't let me off so easily. The day I left with my maidservant was the same day Helian Shui married into the general's residence. At the back gate of the general's residence, Helian Shui, dressed in her wedding gown out of jealousy for my long-standing acquaintance with Han Lai, arrogantly blocked my path. She ordered me to be captured, had my limbs severed, and let my blood drain out, using the dried blood to water the peonies in the general's mansion. All those past events seemed as vivid as if they had just happened. Having been given a second chance at life, I no longer wanted any connection with the man standing before me. However, I never expected that he had also been reborn and was planning to secure a marriage with Helian Shui in advance. It seems he truly loves Helian Shui. I pushed Han Lai away forcefully, my tone firm and resolute. General Han, please behave yourself. You already have an engagement with Princess Helian, and I may be betrothed to the Crown Prince. It's not appropriate for us to be too close. He seemed somewhat skeptical, shaking the sachet in his hand, which I had once embroidered for him, featuring twin lotus flowers and a pair of mandarin ducks. I hear the Crown Prince is nothing but a sickly man, even impotent. Why don't you petition the emperor to cancel this marriage? He leaned closer to me, his arrogant gaze carrying a hint of condescension. Though I cannot give you a title, I can make do and let you serve as my personal maid. I forcefully shook off his hand, my eyes filled with disdain and contempt. No need. I, Xie Zhaojiao, will never set foot in the Han residence again for the rest of my life. He hadn't expected such a reaction from me, his eyes now burning with anger as he grabbed my sleeve. Ungrateful. I know you're just speaking in anger, Xie Zhaojiao. Today, I'm offering you the position of a nameless concubine. After today, you won't even have the chance to beg me for it. At that moment, a stern voice rang out. General Han, what are you doing holding on to my crown princess? Please mind your manners. Han Lai released his grip. Crown Prince Xiao Jingran stood not far away, his voice calm yet carrying a hint of coldness. I hear that the convoy of the Nanjiao princess is almost at the relay station, General Han. It would be best for you to go and greet her soon. After all, you are to become the son-in-law of the Helian kingdom, and you cannot afford to be negligent. Han Lai frowned and had no choice but to leave reluctantly. Xiao Jingran slowly approached me, his moon-white brocade robe gently fluttering in the breeze. In my previous life, we only met briefly at court banquets, with little interaction between us. He noticed my unease and smiled faintly. And that smile instantly dispelled all the anxiety that had been building in my heart. I couldn't help but study him. It must be said that Xiao Jingran had an exceptionally handsome face, with delicate features and a cool, noble demeanor, even with physical imperfections. It did not diminish his aura in the slightest. Instead, it added a unique touch of cool elegance. He looked at me, his gaze deep and calm. "Xie Zhaozhao, if you don't wish to marry me, I will speak to the emperor." Hearing this from him, I was somewhat surprised. However, at the banquet, Han Lai and I had already refused the emperor once. It was impossible to defy him a second time. Marrying the crown prince is far better than marrying Han Lai. I took a deep breath and said, "Your Highness, I am willing." His smile deepened. "Then tomorrow, I'll take you to Susho Pavilion to choose the wedding attire and jewelry." After speaking, he turned and left, his figure gradually disappearing at the end of the corridor. Before going to bed, my parents called me to the flower hall. The two sat at the table, their expressions somewhat grave. Ever since the emperor betrothed me to the crown prince, my parents' emotions have become unusually complicated. On one hand, the crown prince is of noble birth, his status immeasurably exalted. If I marry him, it is highly likely that I will become the empress, bringing unparalleled honor. On the other hand, the crown prince is sickly and prone to illness. Should any unforeseen event occur, leading to a change in the throne, my position would become extremely awkward, and my future uncertain. Seeing my parents sigh in distress, tears welled up in my eyes. In my previous life, I was infatuated with Han Lai, crying and pleading with my father to let me marry him. Before the Lantern Festival, my father, with great humility, requested the emperor for a marriage decree, which led to the subsequent betrothal. After getting what I wanted, I ignored the gossip and packed my bags early to go to the general's residence, waiting anxiously for Han Lai to return from the battlefield. This wait lasted a full 10 years. Over those 10 years, my parents worried themselves sick over me, and yet I ended up in such a miserable state. After I died, my parents were deceived into believing that I had been divorced and too ashamed to return home, fleeing to Yangzhou. Waiting for the day I might come back, completely unaware of what I had gone through, I held back my tears and walked into the flower hall. "Father, Mother, there's no need to worry about me. Marrying the crown prince might not be a bad thing. The emperor is deeply troubled about the issue of marriage alliances, and Han Lai has volunteered to marry a princess. The emperor is greatly pleased." Originally, our family and the Han family were to be united through marriage, which caused the emperor much suspicion, fearing the combined power of the two families. Now, with the marriage no longer happening, not only is the emperor's immediate concern alleviated, but it also resolves his suspicions. Isn't this a perfect solution? My father took a sip of tea, nodded slightly, and sighed. "Jiaoa, you've grown up and become more understanding." He looked at me, his eyes filled with both relief and heartache. "You've thought this through so clearly, and that puts your parents at ease. The crown prince may not be in the best of health, but he is gentle and kind-hearted. Marrying him might not be such a bad fate after all." The next day, I was still in a dream when my maidservant hurriedly woke me up, her voice filled with excitement. "Miss, the crown prince's people are already waiting at the main gate of the mansion, saying they want to take you to choose wedding gowns and jewelry." I rubbed my sleepy eyes, hastily finished my morning routine, and walked to the door. As soon as I stepped out, I saw Crown Prince Xiao Jingran waiting by the carriage. I got into the carriage and couldn't help but speak up. "Your Highness, your leg is not convenient. You don't need to stand and wait for me." His expression dimmed slightly. But he quickly smiled again, his voice as gentle as a spring breeze. Jiao Jiao. You can just call me Jing Ran. He placed his hand lightly on his knee, slightly bowed his head, and put on a look of grievance. Jiao Jiao, are you dislike my poor leg and foot? I don't know if it was my imagination, but I saw tears glistening in his eyes. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly explained, No, I just worried that your highness might be feeling unwell. Absolutely no dislike intended. He looked at me even more pitifully. You're being so distant. It seems you really do despise. I quickly corrected myself, my tone tinged with urgency. Jing Ran, don't misunderstand. He finally showed a smile. Arriving at the Suzhou embroidery shop, Xiao Jing Ran gently clapped his hands, his voice warm and composed. This is a shop owned by the royal family. Take a look and choose whatever clothes or jewelry you like. I still have matters to attend to. I'll come to pick you up in 3 hours, in the Suzhou embroidery shop before her. Every item was exquisitely luxurious, leaving one's eyes dazzled by the sheer opulence. Once, I eagerly anticipated my wedding with Han Lai. He was busy with border wars, so I prepared everything myself. I worked for 3 months, stitching my own wedding dress thread by thread, but before I could wear it, I received a letter of divorce from him. Back then, all my joy turned to nothingness. Now, when I think about it, I only feel a pang of heartache. I casually looked through them and finally chose a grand and elegant headdress. Then my gaze was drawn to a wedding dress made of shimmering brocade. The fabric shimmered with a delicate, radiant luster under the light, standing out distinctly. I want this. A woman's voice suddenly rang out. It was the nightmare and fear I could never forget in my life. It was Helian Shui. Her face was delicate and charming, her posture proud. Han Lai stood beside her, like a perfect match made in heaven. Helian Shui pouted her gorgeous lips and cooed at Han Lai beside her. Lai, I want this one. Han Lai's gaze swept over me, tinged with a hint of surprise, before he said, wrap this dress up for us properly. The maid beside me didn't recognize Helian Shui and was somewhat displeased. This dress was chosen first by our young lady. Before the words had even finished, Helian Shui slapped the maid hard across the face. The maid covered her face, her eyes filled with shock. How could you hit someone? Helian Shui's gaze swept across the room, her voice brimming with arrogance. You lowly servant, dare to compete with me for something. Whatever Helian Shui desires, she always gets. Upon hearing the name Helian Shui, the maid's face changed instantly. Only then did she realize that the fierce woman before her was the princess who had recently arrived. Still shaken by Helian Shui's methods, I quickly helped the maid to her feet and said to Helian Shui. The maid was ignorant of proper etiquette. Please forgive her, Your Highness. Who would have thought that Helian Shui would let out a light snort, her eyes full of disdain? There's a saying in your Central Plains, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. I think it must be that you, the master, haven't taught well, which is why the servants are so unruly. She gently played with a strand of hair by her ear, her tone carrying an unquestionable arrogance. How about this? Kneel down and kowtow 3 times, and I'll spare you. Han Lai, standing to the side, stared straight at me, watching the scene unfold as if it were a play, his eyes carrying a hint of mockery. Maybe after being rejected by me last time, he felt very embarrassed. Of course, he had to save face. Xie Jiao Jiao, you should still kneel to the princess and apologize. The princess is magnanimous, she will forgive you. I clenched my fists, my nails digging deeply into my palms. Reborn. Can I only endure humiliation again? I'd like to see who dares to make her kneel. Xiao Jingran's voice suddenly rang out. Helian Shui's gaze fell on his legs, revealing a mocking expression. I thought it was a dog barking. Turns out it's a cripple. Seeing this, Han Lai quickly stepped in to stop her from continuing. Princess, this is the crown prince of our Lan kingdom. Helian Shui raised an eyebrow slightly, her lips curling into a dismissive smile. her voice filled with insincerity. "Oh, greetings, Crown Prince." Xiao Jingran, however, seemed oblivious to her mockery. He took my hand, his gaze gentle. "Jiao Jiao, I've come to take you home. This outfit doesn't look great, so let's not bother with it." Helian Shue's expression changed, and the smugness on her face was instantly replaced by anger. Xiao Jingran escorted me back to the mansion, but a sense of unease welled up within me. Helian Shue is ruthless, and having lost face, she would certainly seek to regain it elsewhere. Sure enough, a few days later, Helian Shue and Han Lai arrived uninvited, claiming to bring me a wedding gift. Before the servants could stop her, Helian Shue charged into the drawing room with a whip in hand. Previously, I felt an instant connection with the Crown Princess, finding her exceptionally warm and familiar. As a token of my goodwill, I have specially prepared a pair of embroidered shoes adorned with gold and gems to bring you some extra joy. Helian Shue's voice dripped with sarcasm, her expression smug. Behind her, a maidservant presented a pair of shoes with both hands. The shoes appeared quite exquisite at first glance, but upon closer inspection, they seemed to have been worn before. An old pair. Helian Shue's gaze fell on my face, as if waiting for my reaction. Her expression grew even more smug. "Princess consort, would you like to try on these shoes?" No sooner had the words left her mouth than a messenger's voice came from outside. "His Highness the Crown Prince has sent gifts for the princess consort." Everyone turned to look, and saw a grand procession of dozens of people approaching, each carrying clothes, shoes, and jewelry, all of which were exquisitely luxurious. The leading maidservant spoke loudly. The Crown Prince specifically instructed that the clothes from the last visit to the tailor's shop were ultimately a bit too common. These garments were made overnight by Suzhou seamstresses and sent to the capital. Helian Shue's face turned extremely pale. She had always enjoyed comparing herself to others, and Xiao Jingran's arrangement was undoubtedly a harsh slap in the face for her. She bit her lip and viciously twisted Han Lai's arm, causing him to nearly cry out in pain. His face contorted in pain, but he dared not resist. He could only endure the pain and softly comfort Helian Shue. "Princess, don't be angry." Helian Shue turned and left in anger. "I had the servants pack everything of this man." With that, they carried the unconscious Han Lai away, their figures disappearing like the wind. As if they had never been there, I stood still, letting out a soft sigh. Back in my chamber, everything proceeded in an orderly manner. The matron led me to the palanquin. A pair of strong hands steadied me, and the faint scent of herbs wafted through the air. The turmoil in my heart caused by Han Lai was instantly calmed at this moment. For 2 lifetimes, this was the first time I sat in a bridal sedan chair, feeling both nervous and excited. Gently, I lifted a corner of the sedan's curtain to peek outside. Xiao Jingran rode on horseback, exuding the unique poise of someone in a position of power. His face bore an expression of triumph, his eyes brimming with unconcealed joy. Perhaps sensing my gaze, he slightly turned his head, his eyes meeting mine. In that moment, time seemed to stand still, and my heart rate involuntarily sped up a few beats. I felt my cheeks grow warm and quickly let down the curtain. After the wedding ceremony was completed, I sat in the room waiting for a long time, feeling somewhat uneasy. The door was gently pushed open, and the smell of wine mixed with a faint herbal scent wafted in. Xiao Jingran lifted my veil, his handsome face brimming with joy. I became even more nervous, my mind a tangled mess. His legs are not good, so how would he? I couldn't think of anything no matter how hard I tried, and my face turned red first, as if scorched by fire, burning hot. I kept my head down, too afraid to look at him, my mind in turmoil. He raised his hand to ruffle my hair, his voice gentle. "What are you thinking about?" After speaking, he picked up a glass of water from the side and took a few sips, his Adam's apple gently moving, looking particularly alluring. I stammered, "Your Highness, I'll serve you shortly, or perhaps let me be on top." Xiao Jingran spat out all the water in one go. As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them, my face turning even redder.
wishing I could find a crack in the ground to disappear into. My words were indeed bold, and his ears turned red instantly. He sat down beside me. Letting out a soft sigh, his voice tinged with a mix of helplessness and indulgence. Jiao Jiao, remember, I don't need you to serve me with humility. He paused for a moment and continued in a gentle voice. All I want is for you to be happy every day. I was somewhat puzzled, feeling as though I had never truly understood Xiao Jingran's thoughts. He put his arm around my shoulder, a hint of amusement in his voice. Actually, my legs are perfectly fine. It's just that, as the Crown Prince, I need to learn how to hide my abilities and bide my time. He smiled faintly, his eyes glinting with a hint of cunning. Since the Crown Princess is concerned about my abilities, I must demonstrate them well. The red candles in the room burned all night, their flickering light casting shadows of us on the walls. Xiao Jingran indeed lived up to his word. After our marriage, he treated me exceptionally well, as if I were a precious treasure in the palm of his hand, carefully cherished. I feared seeing flowers, so he had all the plants and flowers in the Crown Prince's residence uprooted. Every day, he had people bring me medicinal soups and tonics, fearing that I might feel even the slightest discomfort. One day, Xiao Jingran took me boating by the lake. As I was sipping tea, I noticed Han Lai and Helian Shui sitting in the boat next to us. Han Lai's gaze kept sweeping towards me, carrying a hint of complex emotions, while Helian Shui's face grew increasingly grim. I wanted to avoid any connection with them, so I said to Xiao Jingran, "Jingran, I'm hungry. Let's go to Zui Hualu for a meal." He nodded, his voice gentle. "All right, my dear. It happens that your husband is also hungry." Just as we stepped onto the shore, a sharp chill shot straight towards my face. In the nick of time, Xiao Jingran pushed me forcefully away. An arrow pierced his heart, and his clothes were instantly stained red with blood. I cried out in horror, "Xiao Jingran, someone! Come quickly, protect the emperor." A group of secret guards descended from the sky, escorting both me and Xiao Jingran back to the palace. The imperial physician was already waiting in the palace. The arrowhead was removed, and there was a strange scar on his chest. Xiao Jingran remained unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights before finally waking up. I was leaning against the bed when I heard a noise. I suddenly looked up. "Jingran, you're awake." His eyes were filled with complex emotions, his voice weak but carrying a hint of tenderness. "Don't cry, Jiao Jiao, I'm fine now." My eyes were brimming with tears. "You scared me to death. I'm so glad you're okay now." I suddenly remembered the scar on his chest and asked, "What happened to the knife wound on your chest?" He froze, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. "You saw it, that was." After a moment, he sighed. "There are some supernatural things, if I tell you. You might not believe them." "Jiao Jiao," I looked at him firmly. "I believe." He held my hand, his voice low but resolute. "Jiao Jiao, if I told you this is the second time I've met you in this life, would you believe me?" I stared in shock at Xiao Jingran, exclaiming, "Could it be that you, too, are reborn?" In Xiao Jingran's eyes, there was nothing but heartache. As if hiding endless tenderness and pain, he spoke softly, his voice deep and hoarse. "Yes, Jiao Jiao, in fact. I made up my mind to marry you when I was very young." His voice carried a hint of tenderness, as if reminiscing about those distant past events. "Back then, my mother had just passed away, and I was nearly killed, left with only half a life. Father secretly placed me in your family's residence to recover for half a year. It was you who stayed by my side, comforting me." I was stunned, my voice trembling slightly. "So the child from a relative's family that my father brought back then was you." I looked at him, a complex mix of emotions welling up within me. "Later, when you and Han Lai got engaged, I thought that if he treated you well, I would bless you." His eyes revealed deep self-reproach and helplessness. "But he broke the engagement. I wanted to find you, but you had disappeared. I searched for a whole year, every day and every night, hoping to find you, hoping you would return safely." His voice gradually faded. "Later, my informant found out that someone from the Han estate had secretly thrown something away at the mass grave, where it was devoured by wild dogs. Only then did I realize that it was yours." As he spoke, his voice choked up, and his hand that was touching my face trembled. as if he were touching a fragile treasure. After learning of your death, I knelt on Mount Pusi for 81 days, praying to the heavens to bring you back to life, even if it meant trading 20 years of my life. He paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and continued, later, I read in an ancient book that heart's blood might be able to bring you back to life. He didn't say anything more, but his eyes revealed a firm determination. Tears streamed down my face, filled with shock and emotion. I never expected that in my previous life, after being tortured so brutally, there would still be someone who remembered me, willing to go to any lengths to bring me back, even to the point of taking their own life to save mine. He gently stroked my cheek with heartache. Jiao Jiao, don't cry. When you cry, it breaks my heart. Jiao Jiao, even if I had to do it 99 more times, I would still choose to do it. Upon hearing his words, my tears flowed even more uncontrollably. I gripped his hand tightly and whispered, Jingran, this lifetime, I will stay by your side forever. As Xiao Jingran's body gradually recovered, the mastermind behind his assassination was also uncovered. The arrow was tainted with the unique fragrance of the Nanjiao kingdom. The evidence was irrefutable. All signs pointing to Helian Shui. She had dispatched her confidants to assassinate the crown prince in secret, aiming to destabilize the Lan kingdom and create an opportunity for the invasion of the Nanjiao kingdom. The assassination attempt alarmed the emperor, who ordered an immediate search of the Han residence. To everyone's surprise, a stash of border defense maps, intelligence reports, and secret letters detailing plans to attack the Lan kingdom were discovered. It turned out that Helian Shui's so-called marriage alliance was merely a cover. Her true intention was to infiltrate the Lan kingdom as a spy, waiting for the right moment to act. Upon learning the truth, the emperor was furious and ordered Han Lai's arrest that very night. Regardless of whether Han Lai was aware of the plot or not, as a general, his actions in leaking so many state secrets had already shaken the foundation of the nation. Although some pleaded for mercy, the death penalty could be avoided, but the punishment of life was inevitable. Han Lai was ultimately exiled to a distant frontier thousands of miles away. Before leaving, Han Lai came to see me. He took out a green plum hairpin from his arms, his expression filled with anguish. Xie Jiao Jiao, it's all my fault. This hairpin was something I had pestered him for a long time to give me as a gift on my 16th birthday. He had picked it up casually from a roadside stall and given it to me. Before marrying Xiao Jingran, I had all his belongings returned to him. Now, he handed it back to me again, his eyes filled with regret and reluctance. I didn't take it. The hairpin slipped from his hand, shattering into pieces on the ground, and tears fell from his eyes. The escort officer pulled on the chains, urging the group to move faster. Han Lai was driven away, his lonely silhouette standing out against the setting sun. When the Nanjiao kingdom launched another invasion, the emperor had already secretly set up a trap, fully prepared. The army of Nanjiao was instantly routed. Fleeing in panic, Helian Shui was severed of limbs and bound in ropes, then sent back to Nanjiao. The envoy of Nanjiao arrived in the court of Lan with tens of thousands of livestock and tens of millions in gold, kneeling to beg for mercy, vowing never to invade again. 2 years later, I gave birth to a son, and the emperor gladly abdicated, allowing Xiao Jingran to ascend the throne smoothly. At the coronation ceremony, I held my son's hand. Standing beside Xiao Jingran, as we received the homage of our subjects, in that moment, all past events seemed like fleeting clouds, and the future was being written by our own hands. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.